You're listening to Ask When, the podcast. Folks from all walks of life talk about their daily hustle and bustle, living and celebrating life, sharing tips on becoming champions, especially for those who are muscling mental and physical disabilities. Ask When, the podcast, with your host, who has mustered over 30 years living with cerebral palsy and going strong, author and cerebral palsy advocate Wynn Charles. Ask When, the podcast starts right now.
Welcome to Ask When, everyone. Today with me I have Esther, and I'm going to let Miss Esther take it away and explain her story to you guys. So welcome, Esther.
Thank you so much, Wayne. First of all, I really appreciate the opportunity you give me to share my story, also send my message to your audience. So my name is Esther, and I'm Chinese, but I have been living in Melbourne, Australia for nearly 10 years. And I always thinking my life story will be a bit boring, and because life is quite comfortable to me until there's a point which is literally like 4 years ago, 2016 in May, I think it's 26th of May, I received a diagnosis of cancer, and I got non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And prior to that, I was quite, because I was growing up in an Asian family, I was quite living a very comfortable life, like ticking all the boxes of my parents, the expectation from the society regarding, my job, my money, and lifestyle can be living in another country in Australia. So, and I'm a female engineer. I don't know why every time when I told people I'm an engineer, they will look at me and say, wow, you're a female engineer. And that makes me kind of really feel really proud, and that become actually my identity until that cancer diagnosis. And then I start kind of thinking about, what's, like many people when they experience big life challenges, then it's the time that you start thinking about your life and then trying to think about, what is the true identity, what is your true living. And do you still want to live a life to please others, or you want to live a life you are passionate, or you can be of service to others? So yeah, it's just a quick nutshell of my story. And then ever since that, I start, first of all, I start looking for a cure for my cancer. And luckily, after 4 years, I'm in a very good position. Thanks for the holistic approach I did. I went through conventional, but then I traveled all the way from Australia to Mexico to do natural cancer treatment. And then after that, I also received a lot of support on emotion-wise and spiritual-wise. It's play a quite important role on my healing journey. Until then, but I never thought about, because I'm now a public speaker, but I never thought about I would become a speaker until one day I was at a yoga festival. It was the first time I shared my story, and there was quite a big crowd there. And then after my story sharing, and a couple of people came in to me, they all opened up their story with their own cancer journey. And one of the young girls with leukemia, she said to me, Esther, everyone have cancer, or we're all going through a quite amazing journey, but not everyone will share their story like what you just did. And she said, Esther, you can become our voice. And then at that turning point, I realized, I can be, by sharing my story, I can be the voice for people. I can be more openly talk about the topics of this cancer or the stigma around this cancer. So that's where drives me, like, to all my work since then. So yeah, so that's kind of a brief of my journey for the past couple of years, Wing.
Now, I have a question for you. Since
Sure.
we talked, I talked to Esther, you guys, before bringing her on the podcast, and I thought, well, this was fascinating, and you told me something that the oncologist said to you, I have good news and I have a bad news. And the bad news is, of course, you have cancer. But the good news is if you stop living your stressful life as an engineer, the cancer may go away with treatment, obviously. And so, when do you think the stress of being an engineer and living up to the expectations of your family, because the expectations of your family, they set the bar incredibly high. And do you think the stress of all that brought on the cancer?
Yeah, to be honest, Wing, I believe that for my case personally, I think stress is the main cause. The reason is, first of all, my family, they don't have cancer history, none of them. And I was eating quite healthy and I was exercise regularly. I don't really have bad habits. And I know cancer causing is quite, mysterious, but I noticed, always, even the first, since I getting school, and then over the past 20 years, I was just constantly getting stress and a chronic stress. And especially a couple of years before I got cancer diagnosed, at that time, I was trying to settling down in the new country, and I was trying to prove my dad, my parents, that I made a right decision to leave away from my country to come to Australia. And I want to prove to my new employee in Australia at the time that, you hire me, I can do a job well, even, I'm a Chinese, I haven't really got a local experience. So it's really a lot of, I trying to do well, and I try to prove to others. And it's personally, I put a lot of expectation because, so that's how it is, because I only want people to see the good side of me. Yeah. And
you didn't want to see you didn't want people to see the bad side of you. You didn't want people to see the hurting side of you.
No, I was literally actually blocked that. I don't want people to see when I was vulnerable or when I was sad. I want people to see, I can always do this job well. I'm always happy. I'm always positive. And that's the changes I had after having cancer and after going through a lot of healing, especially on the emotionally, that I realized it's actually okay to feel that way. So that's a big change for me, actually. And I don't really need to please, many people. Yeah.
And so, Esther, what is your favorite book and what is the title?
My favorite book. I have to tell you a quick story. When I was going through cancer journey, and I went to through a friend, and she is healer, and she told me to do 3 things. She said, first of all, to do yin yoga, a slow yoga, and the second thing she said, to read a book. It's called The Alchemist.
The Alchemist?
Yes, that's my favorite book, and it's actually really representing my life. Yes, like the treasure actually just near where I am at the start point, but I have to go through all the journey, learn all the lessons, and then come back. Yeah.
So if your BFF was going to write a book for you. And for those of you that don't understand what BFF means, best friends forever, thank you very much. And if your best friend was going to write a book about you, Esther, what would the title be?
I think the book will be more about like how Esther has been transformed from disconnection to connection. Especially one thing when I don't know, but that's something I hopefully in my big vision in the future is I want to be the like in China there is a cartoon called Mulan, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I want to be, because I know like a lot of females in China, we still have a lot of because we have a lot of social obligations and the impact culture-wise, we can't really be ourselves, especially as women. So I want my friend to write a book about how Esther has shifted from, being, living a standard life, disconnected, and as a woman, and being, always, especially my parents want me always go, and then putting a lot of masculine layer, but forget about the strong feminine layer inside of her. And then she become, a real, stand out and to be herself, and also encourage other women in China to step out and to become themselves. So I want to, maybe my best friend, to write a book about my changes. And also because my best friend has been working alongside me during every step of my life in the last 20 years. And she actually goes through a very similar change as I do. So maybe we can both share that changes and then become that powerful voice for any other Chinese women, maybe.
Exactly, because I don't know if you guys know this, but in China, and now I've heard, and now correct me if I'm wrong, Esther, boys, they want boys more prevalent than girls. And so is that still, I've heard that, and I've heard that for years, years upon years. Is that still true that when parents have babies, they are more likely to do the boys than the girls because they want the boys to be workhorses, and they also want the Chinese in general set a high standard for their families.
Yeah, definitely. I think when even, of course now it's 2020, things getting changed quite a bit, especially in the big cities like Beijing or Shanghai.
Yeah.
Parents, they are okay to have girls, but I believe still in many rural or country areas and boys in dominant.
Yeah.
It's that concept is still there, because we are very family based, and then you will get the expectation from the older generation that they will want to have a boy, so that it can continue their heritage, continue their names, which is really important. That's why when I was born, like in 1980s, and because at that time I only can have one child, and my dad was the single boy in his family. So when my dad know I was a girl, he was quite disappointed. And that's where my journey started, because then I want to prove my dad, like I want to seek his approval. So I want to behave like a boy. I want to always try to do best, do engineering, so that I don't disappoint my dad. And actually, these things were quite common within my friends at the time, that, we want to prove that girls are better than boys, and
Yeah.
quite a competitive, that mindset. Yeah.
And so, Esther, what is your morning routine?
Oh, I will. So first thing I started, and I always will start doing some meditation, maybe 10, 15 minutes. And after that, I will, because after I going through cancer, I learned like a Qigong or Tai Chi is quite good for me. So I will actually practicing maybe around 10 minutes, like a Qigong or Tai Chi, like slow, just to feel the breathing through the body and have some slow movement. And then after that, I have a breakfast and start my day.
So you are more a yogi because of the cancer diagnosis.
It is, yes,
And
because
were you into the yoga before?
no, not
No.
really. And the yoga I entered before is more about, those powerful yoga,
Yeah.
like um like a hatha, or like
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
It's really for for fitness. But after that, I realized I need to go slow, like yoga more focus on breathing, slow yoga, or that meditative yoga, and that style. After I got cancer diagnosis, I think that is more important for my own self to actually calm down from stress, and I use that a lot from that.
And so, Esther, do you have any questions for me as we wrap this interview up?
Yeah, actually, we have a really, really fascinated with your journey. And first of all, I want to say, because you have I know you are doing quite a lot of things, your courses, where you up to, and what's your plan next?
What's my plan next
Yeah.
survive after I survive journalism school? My plan is to go into house coaching and
Yeah.
teach people how to use alternative health along with um, traditional medicine to
Yeah.
go to live healthier lives. And also, my plan is to use my journalism degree to write about the disabled viewpoint and be the voice for the voiceless.
Wow, that's amazing. So there's a lot to do for you. So how you balance your life at the moment daily, because you are involved in a lot of studies, work, doing this podcast. Tell me about that.
I well, I get up at between 5:45 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. Then I don't hit snooze. I typically talk to my Amazon smart speaker and give her the wake word, and that's how I get my news. So if it's not coming off, and I'm not a big TV watcher, you guys know that by now. I'm a 100% audio learner slash a little bit visual too. And
For
so,
sure.
but audio is more my speed. So then after that, I typically, if I have a meeting on the East Coast, or if I typically have a meeting at 6 a.m., I'm up looking at meeting. And so I will typically do, like today I had a podcast interview at 6:45 due to a
Wow.
little bit out of the norm right now. But I typically get up and do my morning routine individually myself because by 8 a.m. I have to turn to inquire mode as to say my aides walk in the door at, well,
Yeah.
at 8 a.m. and it used to be 7:30. My aides walk in the door, and so by 7:30, 8 a.m. I have to be done with my own little morning routine, and
Routine.
I literally have to be on duty as of 8 a.m.
Oh, wow. So
So
they actually a lot, but because you get up early
yeah,
and doing all these things.
I'm
Wow.
always I'm always a morning I'm always a morning person. By noon, my day is half done. By
Wow,
noon,
that's amazing.
I can't do things. Well, I can, but I choose
Yeah,
not to. I can do things in the afternoon, but
yeah,
by 5 o'clock, when you're dealing with an neurological disability, you
yeah,
are done. You are done. And
yeah.
I've noticed with cancer patients, by 5 o'clock, um, they are done. And I
Yeah.
was a caretaker for a person with
Oh,
cancer for 9 days. And man, it was a struggle and a half
for
to
sure.
get to not only watch him suffer, him,
Mm.
yes, and this was my dad, and this was my dad, by the way. And so he had undiagnosed stage 4 lung cancer. And
Oh,
so throughout those 9 days, well, 9 days that he was home, it was a struggle and a half when I would walk into my shower um because I would be up and semi functioning even though I got no sleep those 9 days. Even though
yeah.
I was his primary caregiver
Gave
at night because my stepmom and stepsister were 3 floors above us. So the way my house is set up, two bed, two bedrooms on the ground floor.
mm,
So it's my bedroom and then a guest bedroom, which turned into his bedroom for 9 days.
mm-hmm.
You could barely walk stairs. And so I was his primary caregiver for 9 days, and I was his um, number one resource if he
Yeah.
needed anything. If he needed anything, but man, that was eye-opening experience for me to
Mm-hmm.
because I always needed help. I will need help until the day I die.
Sure.
But I will never forget having the tables turned and me um,
Sure.
being his primary caregiver.
How
I
do you
had
feel
felt,
that way? Do you feel you actually, have the power because you actually also can give? What
well,
do you feel at that moment?
I I felt if he needed if he needed anything, I had a cell phone and one night he you guys don't know this story, but he actually walked into my bedroom to ask a question, and he had his oxygen tank, his oxygen dragging behind him, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And so,
Mm,
at that time, I I had pretty much had his life in my hands, and
sure.
that was that was scary. That was scary because
Scary moment.
people
Yeah.
would come and relieve me during the day. No wonder why I was such a zombie fight. No, now looking back on it,
Exhausted.
no wonder why I was so zombified, because people wouldn't, and they weren't registered nurses, by the way. Um, they they were my aides, my own aides, who happened to know the situation that was going on, and
Mm,
so no, no wonder why people caught me on ground practically half of the time of those 9 days. And no wonder why I didn't want to speak to people,
yeah.
because I I was a caregiver at night, even though I had
Yeah.
able-bodied people to help me with him at night. I was the caregiver to the 10th degree. And even during those 9 days, it would have been
It would be really hard for you. Yeah, so hard.
and
Yeah.
back into the hospital. He got trans. No, he was last week. Last week. This is last week. He would have been transferred out of here to the hospital, because this week 1 year ago today, he was in a major hospital. So last week
Mm,
he would have been, as we're sitting here recording this, it's May 11th. So having him essentially live on my ground floor for 9 days. No wonder why I didn't want to talk to people,
of
because
course.
I was so relieved that he made it through the night. And by the time now, because it dawned on me a year later, by the time I would hop into the shower, he would be not functioning. So I was so relieved that
Yeah.
he
He
made it
has been
through
taken. Yeah.
night by night for those 9 days. That by the time my aide put me in a shower, I was literally the walking dummy. And I did lose weight after he died. I've been told I lost
Ah,
weight after he died. But I was such the walking zombie that and plus I had to deal with um
your own thing.
his my not only my own thing, but his lack of medical care. The poor guy, he got lack of medical care big time. And
Mm,
so not only my own thing did I have to deal with my cerebral palsy, which is a challenge in itself, I
for
had
sure.
to deal with his lack of medical care. I mean, the day that he died, we still had the oxygen compressor up here, and the day that the day that we got home after he died, I got home before everyone else did, and I was the one kicking the oxygen compressor out of here, and then we got that solved. But I think it was a real eye-opening experience being a caregiver for only 9 days. And now I understand what it's like when someone turns around and helps me.
Yeah, that gives then more understanding
It
and bring
gives
more
a deeper
compassion.
perspective to,
Yeah, respect.
and so yeah. But
Definitely.
that was the worst moments of my life. I mean, I thought that I was
Sorry to hear that.
going well. At one
Yeah.
point, I had to, at the day he got officially transferred, I had to talk to the 911 dispatcher at my house, and I had to wait for not only the 911 dispatcher to get to my house because he could barely walk. And
Yeah.
so 911 came into my house, and that was the scariest moment of my
Yeah.
life. Letting hearing 911 knock on doors.
Yeah.
They were outside. I was inside. I was in a set of PJs screaming at 911, don't leave him, because he was so
Incredible.
delusional, saying,
Yeah.
I don't need help. I need oxygen. And I'm in the next room, and 911 actually heard me. 911 actually heard me, and thank God my stepmother appeared 2 seconds after 911. And so, and I said to 911, yes, he needs help. He not only,
Great.
because lung cancer, when you can't breathe with any cancer, you start losing your mind. So
Yes.
when 911 showed up, yeah, that was fun. That was fun. So by the time, and two different aides showed up that day. By the time I saw aide number one, aide number one met me emotionally exhausted. Aide number two met me. She met me. She walks in my door. I was halfway up my stairs. And so aide number one left after an hour. And then aide number two took over. And then I'll never forget when I'll never forget that day when I am like, okay, who's taking over who? Because
Yeah.
because
You you
my
did a great.
dad my dad was so belligerent. He got to the point of being belligerent that he said to my stepmom, and he said to my stepmom, go home and be with Win. And my stepmom goes, well, do you want me to go to Denver with
With
you,
yeah.
and to the bigger hospital with you? And he goes, no. He goes, go home and be with Win. Well, going home and being with Win, and so I'll never forget telling him that the ambulance was 911 was coming to help. Oh,
Mm.
I'll never forget having a call with my stepmom saying, "You need to tell him that 911 is coming to help." I'm like, "You leave me with
Yeah.
this responsibility." And so
Yeah.
I just think being a caregiver is something that I
Yeah.
never want to experience again.
And then you need to, instead of you need to be transparent to tell him what's
Yeah,
happening. Definitely, even
I
you don't want to tell him, but you need to. Yeah.
well, it's so funny. It's not funny, but sad. He wanted to go back to the small hospital that sent him home, and so I said, "Oh," my response was okay. I knew exactly where he was going. I I didn't tell him that, dude, you're going to a bigger hospital. You have cancer, and this is out of the small hospital's scope. But he wanted to be a hospital close to home. So that was hard on me as his
Yeah.
next kin to understand, to have him understand um,
The
that
situation.
not only did he have cancer, but yeah, but not only did he have cancer, that was hard on me. That was heartbreaking for me,
Yeah.
heartbreaking
Yeah.
to the 10th degree, because I wanted to hug him. I wanted to give him a hug and say, "Look, dude, you have cancer. You're going to a bigger hospital to get appropriate diagnosis," because at that time they sent him home without a diagnosis.
So you have a. Do you feel a little bit regret you didn't tell him at the
I
time?
um do I feel regretful? Do. I
Yeah.
do, because I knew the signs of him, and I knew these were untypical signs of him. And so I do. I knew he had cancer the whole entire time. We tried, we, I say, we, we tried to say, we tried to convince him that alternative medicine was a good thing, but he was
Yeah.
so stuck in his ways that and I believe that most lung cancer patients get stuck in their ways enough
Yeah.
um, to not see the forest for the trees.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I understand. Yeah, because once
yeah,
what a lot of lung cancer people think, okay, I got lung cancer, then there's no cure, and I reject and I don't want to look
yeah.
for any other
No,
options.
exactly.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it. And that's what he was that's what he was doing. And so yeah. But Esther, as we wrap this interview up, where can people find you?
Oh, I have a website which is www.estherxu.com, and that's where you can find me and with my stories and with my mission. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
also maybe yeah, yeah.
And
So I
Es- you guys, Esther is very good at um Facebook Messenger. So for those, and she's very good at
yes,
Zoom, and she's very good at Uber Conference, although Uber Conference, FYI, for those of you in international countries, Uber Conference doesn't want to work. Zoom wants to work. So FYI,
exactly.
you if you use Uber Conference and you try and get Esther on, it's easier to grab Esther via Zoom or Esther via Facebook Messenger too. And so I appreciate Esther's time, and I appreciate you guys supporting this podcast. Thanks. See you guys. Bye.
You just listened to Ask Win, the podcast. To become a guest in the show, visit our website at askwin.weebly.com or call 816-591-3399. Just look for Danielle. Connect with Win on Twitter at WinKellyCharles and like our Facebook page at Butterflies of Wisdom. You can also purchase Win's book through Amazon.com or get a copy of the audiobook through Audible. Ask Win, the podcast.